Thought leaders and policymakers are gathered at the Child Conference 2025 to find ways to support the development of children. Organised by the Centre for Holistic Initiatives for Learning and Development, it's hoping that research evidence can inform policies better. Now, for more, we are joined by the Centre's Deputy Director, Adjunct Associate Professor Chong Shang Chee. Professor Chong, welcome to the program. So the conference looks at the importance and relevance of evidence-based strategies. How has research shaped early childhood policies and programs in Singapore, and what are some examples you can share with us?
Yes. Shahida, thank you for having me on the show. I think research is critical because it generates evidence, and we hope it's good evidence. This allows us to adopt good policy decisions and embed some of this evidence in the way we practice around promoting children's development. So at the Center for Holistic Initiatives for Learning and Development Child at the Yong Lu Lin School of Medicine, I can illustrate two ways, for example, of how our work has informed policy and practice. So first, we know that recently the national screen time guidelines have been launched and has received quite a lot of attention about screen viewing in very young children. And actually, before that, in the year 2021, we already generated some forward-looking recommendations on screen viewing in young children, because the research on the growing up in Singapore towards healthy outcomes has shown that in Singapore, our children are viewing screens way younger than is recommended. And we have also demonstrated some negative impacts on the cognitive and language development, for example. So many of these child members, including myself, were part of the advisory that worked with Ministry of Health in putting forward these guidelines, which has now informed policy. And we are now implementing these advisories through Ministry of Education, Early Childhood Development Agency, and through the Grow Well SG initiative. Yeah, so that's the first example. Now, the second example is we know that social emotional learning is now prioritized in the early years development framework, as well as the nurturing early learners framework under the Early Childhood Development Agency. So what Child did was that we actually used research and looked through 2,000 of papers, and we crystallized and finally selected about 9 practice elements which teachers can use in the classrooms to promote social emotional development. And this study is actually called the Enhancing and Supporting Early Development to Better Children's Lives, or EASL study. And we actually implemented and trialed this in many preschools in Singapore. And we found that we were able to coach preschool teachers to promote this in early childhood settings like preschools.
All right.
So this illustrates how research can inform,
You,
the way
you
we
would
practice and
Sorry to interrupt, Professor Chong. You were talking about screen time recommendations and social emotional learning. But in your view, what does a holistic development of a children look like, and how do programs in Singapore support this?
So I think what we are increasingly looking at is what is called community participatory research. Research is not just done in specific organizations. It's not just done in the lab. We must make sure that the research we do is relevant and is able to be applied to practice in everyday settings. So community participatory research actually brings together the stakeholders and participants who are from the community. These could be like, for example, the preschools, the social service agencies, and we have for example, one study where child partners with the healthcare system to deliver a preventive health program for low-income children to promote their development and health. In this way, we partnered across health, education, and social settings, and we hope that coming together in this way to provide services can really enhance the holistic development of children. Yeah.
Apart from community participation, how can policymakers ensure effective implementation of evidence-informed approaches to ensure that every child gets the best start in life?
Yes, I think in Singapore, we are very fortunate, Shahida, because our policymakers do want to use good science So actually that dialogue that happens between the policymakers and researchers and the practitioners who are on the ground observing and can bring in some of the observational insights to policymakers would be very important. So at Child, we actually very unique. We have a policy advisory council. This is chaired by Madam Rahayu Mazam, who is actually Minister of State and Minister of Health and MDDI. We have representatives from Ministry of Education, Ministry of Social and Family Development, Early Childhood Development Agency, and Ministry of Health. This regular dialogue allows us to make our research current and make sure it's aligned with our national priorities. And it allows us within the early childhood ecosystem then to be more cutting edge and relevant to what we are actually doing. And this is actually a unique advantage that we have in Singapore, I feel.
All right, Professor Chong, thank you so much for speaking with us tonight. That was Adjunct Associate Professor Chong Shang Chee from the NUS Yong Lu Lin School of Medicine. Thank you.